Gen Alpha will change society forever.
Generation Alpha is on track to be the most troubled generation of all time, and it's not even close. This is the era of mindless consumption, extreme polarization, and soulless, meaningless junk food entertainment. From the
Dang.
explosion of mental
So I have no idea how the generations are like organized. Isn't it like what, every 20 or 30 years or something like that? There's like a new generation or whatever. I'm not exactly sure. I think I'm a millennial. Um After millennial, what was it? Uh Jeez. I don't even remember. Was it Gen Y or Z? And then I don't know how it just went back to like A. Or what was it? Was it like Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and then millennials in there somewhere? And then I guess it's a Gen Alpha? Is that what he means by the most current one? The kids that are just like just brought up on the internet with smartphones, and most of their parents just go, "Okay, here's your smartphone. Don't lose it. If you need me in an emergency, here it is." And then there it is. That's crazy. I can't imagine to just be brought up and just have like the internet and the cell phone and Teslas are a normal thing, and god dang.
illness and violent crime to rampant consumerism and alarmism, our world is slowly degrading. And Gen A has been placed at the forefront of it all. Throw in a worldwide pandemic that shut down the entire globe for months, unhinged inflation, and technology that's becoming progressively more invasive, and
Yeah.
you get a recipe that could destroy the minds and lives of millions. This
Yeah, there's gonna be this generation has uh like all the AIs available. Well, not directly available, but like it's being developed. Like more and more AIs are just gonna be more prevalent in
This is the
society.
generation of your little cousins, your younger siblings, or maybe even your kids. And while it may seem that these characteristics closely resemble those of Gen Z, there's one minor distinction that makes Gen A something that has never been seen in human history. Now, for those of you born anywhere between the 80s and the early 2000s, you might think of your life thus far in two main parts: life without the internet and life with the internet. You
Yeah.
recall a time when phones were actually used for talking and when computers served as a tool rather than an alternate universe. You probably spent most of your free time outside or with other people. You were
Yeah.
fully immersed in tangible reality, and your digital experiences were probably limited to a couple hours a day. Rather
Yeah, I mean, back in when I was like, I don't know, around 10 years old or whatever, uh, I would go to my friend's house, ride my bike to my friend's house. We all like playing football, but then again, we also all like playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater or NFL Blitz. You know, we did a little bit of both. We played outside, and then when we were tired, we were just like, "Hey, you want to go inside and play games?" Yeah, sure. That was more than like even then. It's like after we got done playing video games, we're like, "You want to play Pokemon?" We are just like, "Yeah." We did all of that shit, dude.
Rather than scrolling through 300 different TikToks in an hour, you watched a couple episodes of your favorite show. When you were bored, you were forced to make use of your imagination or just sit there and enjoy the silence for a little while. Fast forward to
Yeah.
2023, and your life is probably completely different. You likely spend most of your time on a phone or computer.
Oh
And while that
Jesus.
might be problematic, it doesn't change the fact that your developmental years were spent without the presence of this invasive technology. And because of that, you have a firm comprehension of the contrast between the two eras, which allows you to
Yeah.
quickly recognize the issues unique to modernity, even if you might fall victim to them sometimes. But what if you didn't have that point of reference? What if you were
Uh-oh.
born in the last decade? What if you were thrust right into the most unstable and confusing era in human history? What would your basis for stability and normality be? This question encapsulates the one-of-a-kind situation faced by Generation Alpha, and no one seems to have an answer to it. In fact, no one has any clue how it's going to play out. And this isn't your typical case of generations pointing fingers at each other. This is an era that could see the most profound societal transformation in human history. It
Maybe.
begins in the womb, where the development of the hypersensitive fetus is already being impacted by record levels of obesity and unnatural amounts of radiation from digital devices. Upon birth, the kid begins to observe the people around it constantly staring down at their phones, which they might come to think of as an instinctual human function for all we know.
Oh
Upon reaching
Jesus. Looking at your phone becomes just instinctual. Jesus.
6 months old, babies already have an understanding of the basics of a touchscreen, with a third of babies under
Yeah.
the age of 1 displaying the ability to swipe. If you've been around a baby recently, you
Oh
know
my
that they're
god.
completely infatuated with smartphones. They tend to have far more interest in screens than any other toy. And this makes perfect sense considering the fact that the luminescent, interactive world of a phone screen is simply unlike anything else. The lights, sounds, and rapid movements are unbelievably stimulating to a baby's brain. By the age of 5 or 6, most kids already have their own iPads, which renders the rest of their toys completely useless. This is where
Oh
they first
yeah.
encounter the confusing and detached world of the internet, where they will spend around 6 hours a day scrolling through mindless short-form content or watching other people play with toys. And
Oh my god. That's so like weird when you say it like that. Like, what's this? Screen time by the numbers. The top screen time activities: TV, streaming, social media, gaming.
short-form
Okay. So 6 hours per day, 8 to 10. 11 to 14 is 9, and then 15 to 18 is 7.5 ish. It's probably like for school and whatnot, or at least like high school is like when you're right here. And 11 hours per day, 18 plus. Oh my god. Ugh, that's what it seems like sometimes, and it can go higher.
content or watching other people play with toys. And if their parents didn't take the time to enable a child lock,
Oh god, this is like a weird ass TikTok.
it's likely they'll come across something that even adults find scarring. And you obviously can't expect a
What
kid to
the
be able
fuck, dude? Uh, what? I mean, I guess there's an audience for everything. I guess. Never give up. Grown ass man. You are perfect. Laugh, be strong, fabulous. What? This is. What are these words? Oh my god. I just can't believe this.
And you obviously can't expect a kid to be able to moderate themselves, which is
No.
why it's the parent's responsibility. But this can be much harder than it sounds. You see, having a smartphone has become standard for children as young as 7 because
Yeah, if you don't have a smartphone when you're a little kid, you are the odd person out and you will probably get bullied. Or people will just think you're poor and you'll be bullied for people thinking you're being poor. You know, it's like, oh, there goes Billy. He don't got no smartphone. He's not on TikTok. What was it? I think I was watching like a random video one time. Or not. No. This was really weird to me. So like there was one time I was doing an event for a job that I had, and it involved like just showing up at like a high school football game, and like when I was there, like high school was just everybody was weird in that there were like random just groups of kids, and they were all doing like little dances or trying to come up with like videos for TikTok. And this was like so off-putting to me because my high school experience was not that. Like seeing kids like just group up to like shoot videos and dances for whatever social media, it was just so weird to me. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, holy shit, this is what kids are doing. And to think that your follower count can dictate how popular you are in high school is crazy to think about, dude. Like, oh, that's Jeff. He doesn't have that many followers. He's a loser. Don't talk to him. Like, what?
because of this, the entire culture of this generation is dictated by the internet. Everything they talk about or do for fun is sourced from the internet. So the one kid whose parents wouldn't buy them a phone is
Yeah.
bound to be an outcast from the second grade. Their ability to
Yeah.
converse, socialize, and play is limited since they don't have access to the digital world that all the other kids are living in. And we know what excessive internet use does to adults, so we can only assume the impact would be much harsher on young children. But we also
Yeah.
know how terrible social isolation can be, especially at a young age. So this leaves parents with a hard choice. Either they expose their 7-year-old to the brain rot of the internet, or they shield them from it and inhibit their ability to develop socially.
Yeah.
Okay, fast forward to the current day, where the oldest of Gen A is about 13 years old. While many
Oh,
kids at this point will have had some level of developmental impairment, the real damage has yet to be done. Around this age is the time when many kids start to develop worldviews, opinions, and identities. They
oh
begin to
yeah.
comprehend some of the underlying dynamics of society and human nature, and naturally, their curiosity directs them towards the internet. And while
I wonder how much of these kids like social media algorithms are just being dictated by politics. Like that's crazy to think about because that shit's out there. And you know, how many times do you click like a random video on the side or whatever, and it has nothing to do with what you normally watch, but then you hit the home screen or like the refresh button, and then your like I don't know recommended tab is just littered with that one thing you saw the one time. That's crazy to think about, dude.
While the internet can be good for this, it has a far greater potential to ruin it. The internet is filled with useful information and resources, but it's completely smothered by masses of sensationalist garbage that's designed to hijack your emotions and get your click. And we adults fall for this all the time, so why wouldn't young children? The
Oh yeah.
algorithm isn't going to serve them something educational or appropriate for their age. It's
Oh
going to
yeah.
serve them a fresh batch of mind-numbing waste. It's going to serve them the same content that everyone else clicked on. And due to the nature of the internet, this is almost always something that's crafted to be as shocking and stimulating as possible. Or in
Yeah.
other words, something that doesn't align with reality. And this works a lot like a drug. It's fast-paced, interesting, and gives you full control. As long as you keep swiping, it keeps delivering. It offers everything that reality lacks and more. And since
Well, that's just how social media operates, and I don't know how many people recognize that. And I would like to think people are becoming a little bit more aware, in that, like, social media isn't really designed. Social media is designed to make you engage with it. It just so happens the things that you engage with are things that make you mad and angry and pissed off. You know, you don't really engage with something that you like. You engage with things that piss you off, like somebody that doesn't think like you, somebody that has a different opinion, and so on and so forth. So things like that are going to be getting served to kids.
Gen A has been exposed to this world from such a young age, its effects will have a much longer time to incubate, with most of that time being during some of the most important years of mental development. As a result, Gen A will likely see a much bigger spike in mental illness than Gen Z, and at a much younger age.
Oh,
Everything
Jesus.
from depression to anxiety will be more rampant than ever. The less common disorder among Gen Z, known as internet psychosis, will likely become more widespread among Gen A. And
Internet related psychosis.
everything only gets worse from here. You see, one of the coping mechanisms we have for the illness and emptiness caused by our modern habits is to double down and dive even deeper. And through this, many people actually find an outlet. Enter the toxic wastelands of Twitter and Reddit. Some of the
Oh,
people who
God.
need help the most come to these sites in search of an identity and fulfillment. In doing so, they come across a vast array of different political and cultural rabbit holes. Eventually, they find one appealing enough and allow it to completely take control of their identity and personality. And this is what has caused political and cultural discourse to become so diluted and polarizing. When a person's entire identity is completely reliant on certain ideas or beliefs, a simple questioning of those beliefs is an attack on them as a human being. And this
Yeah.
problem will only be worse with Gen A down the line. Gen A doesn't know what the more tame political climate of the past looks like. They weren't
Yeah, man, you need to like start separating yourself from your, I don't know, like opinion. Like a person is more than just their opinion about a certain thing. And that's apparently that's hard to wrap people's minds around, I guess.
weren't around for the time when most people didn't really care or think about politics at all. By 2016, the oldest of Gen A was 6, and they got to witness the unprecedented 2016 election. Everything that has happened since 2016 is the only experience or knowledge they have about politics, which will heavily shape how they view it as they mature.
Oh,
And this will
yeah.
have massive implications down the line. Gen A will likely turn out to be even more radical and zealous than Gen Z, and the internet will be their
Oh,
main outlet
Jesus.
of expressing it. And those who manage to avoid this trap won't have it much easier. As society becomes more divided and polarized, it becomes harder for those floating in between to find meaning and a sense of community. Because of this, Gen A will also be more nihilistic than Gen Z. And while this is terrible for us, not everyone loses here. Modern corporations stand to profit massively from this. If you take a generation suffering from mental illness, meaninglessness, and the inability to critically think, and you pair it with the fact that it's the largest generation in human history, you get something that corporate America could only dream of. Corporations have already taken note of this with Gen Z, using the masses of data they produce through their excessive social media use in
Yeah.
order to make advertising more predatory and mind-reading. And this is
Oh yeah, and honestly, this happens a lot with me on Amazon. If I order like, I don't know, some Crocs or some shit off of Amazon, I will immediately be getting served more and more Croc ads. Like, oh, did your Crocs break recently? Buy these little straps or buttons or Croc pins to stick on your Crocs that you just bought. It's like, bro, what are you talking about? I just bought these things. Meanwhile, every website that I go to, they're like, hey, Crocs this, Crocs that. Do you need socks to go with your Crocs?
worked fantastically for them. But in many ways, Gen Z is simply just a warm-up for Gen A. Since Gen A will spend even more time scrolling, they will produce even more data for corporations, which will then be used to make advertising even more effective. So as Gen A
Yeah.
matures and enters the workforce, consumer spending and corporate profits will soar even higher. The mental instability paired with large swaths of data at corporations' disposal will make business easier than ever. As a result, the inflation-induced poverty we see today will only continue to get worse. Consumerism and materialism will be more prevalent than ever, but not in the traditional sense. You see, in the past, these things were exhibited through clothes, cars, houses, and jewelry. But that
Yeah.
was back in the 2010s when people valued reality over the digital world. We're talking about 2035, when
Oh,
Gen A is in their 20s, while video
the metaverse. Oh God. And now he's gonna bring up the games. Do you think skins are gonna be even more expensive because it's a sign of like flexing over the pores? Do you think like all the name brands like Gucci, Balenciaga, Supreme, and all the other clothes companies, do you think that they would ever reach out to these like long-standing video games? Like let's take Counter-Strike for example. Right now it's going through a little rut in CS2 because a lot of cheaters playing. No one is it's got a really bad rap right now. Hopefully they can get that shit like on lock. Maybe not. But you know how like gambling is like really popular in Counter-Strike? What if some of these like guns and knives from Counter-Strike, like what if Valve and Balenciaga did like a little collab and all of a sudden they just made like a knife that just said like Balenciaga on it and it's like a 50K knife or some shit like that. Something stupid expensive. But it's like they didn't have to create anything because it's just a knife. It's just ones and zeros. It's just colors. It's just pixels on a screen. Do you think that's the future of flexing, like in the virtual world?
Video game cosmetics and virtual reality existed before, they'll be the standard now. People will now pay for virtual clothes, virtual mansions, and
Oh
virtual
God.
supercars as if they were real, and they will experience it all through a VR headset. And corporations will be happy to deliver, considering the fact that it's not real and costs nothing to produce.
Yeah.
People will spend half their day working just to make enough money to sustain their physical bodies in virtual life. And as time goes on, the corporations behind this continue to gain more leverage over the people as they become more dependent on their product. The only thing that will remain unchanged is Western corporations' exploitation of third world labor to produce everything. And it's around this point that a hyperreality will officially come into existence, alongside the beginning of the end of our species. Now, this is a problem that will take another decade to develop,
Oh
but will
no.
require some serious intervention to prevent. And so far, no one is taking it all that seriously, with experts referring to the situation as an unintentional global experiment. We've seen how a lot of this plays out with Gen Z, and it's been nothing short of tragic. Gen Z has declined in almost every measure that matters, and the internet has made us painfully aware of it. To think
Yeah.
that this cycle is going to repeat itself with another generation,
Yeah.
and that no one is really standing up to it, shows you just how much everyone cares. The reality is that even though younger people are suffering from these problems the most, it's affecting people of all ages. And the entire situation is a catch-22. Our way of dealing with these problems is the same behavior that causes them in the first place. The only real way to end this vicious cycle would be to completely desert many of these modern technologies. But this option wouldn't be without problems either, as a large part of our economy is reliant on this technology.
When you phrase it like that, it kind of seems a little ridiculous because when you say it like that, to me, it kind of sounds like a diet. Like, what it seems like is happening is there's too much screen time. So much the same way with like an obese person mm, is most likely eating a little too many excessive calories. How about just tone it back a little bit with the screen time and figure out something else to do? Like, would that be a good, I don't know, like resolution maybe? Like, much the same way like a diet can help somebody eat less calories, like moderating your screen time, could that help? I mean, it kind of seems like it, but it's like too simple. Maybe it's a little more complicated than that.
Technology. Many of the largest companies in the world are the producers of this technology, and they employ millions of us. So if they go under, so do we. The next 10 years could prove to be some of the most confusing and problematic years in human history. And while we can make a rough guess as to how things will play out, there's really no limit to what could happen.
Oh, I can't read. Feel like help with that a donation. Okay. Baller, dude. Bro, this is a really good video. 100%, man. And you got me. Novi. I think it's it. Novi? Novi? I'm a fan. Easily. That was a great video, dude. I want to see more. But dang, I like it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Uh Go check this dude out. Does great stuff. I want to see more. I'll catch you guys on the next one, all right? Peace.